Every year, January marks Human Trafficking Awareness Month, when activists seek to bring attention to that crime. It is estimated that 25 million people worldwide are being pushed into forced labor or the sex trade against their will, generating at least $150 billion a year. Federal officials say that trafficking is a booming business for the Mexican-based cartels that ship people across the border, but it also happens across the country. ICE says arrests for human trafficking jumped from 1,746 in fiscal year 2020 to 2,360 in fiscal year 2021. The cases are likely farther greater than that.
Vulnerability is what makes individuals at risk. And so someone who may be experiencing poverty, homelessness, someone who has been abused, whether domestic violence or sexually, someone who's been involved in our child welfare system, those vulnerabilities are what traffickers prey upon.
And human trafficking is particularly pervasive in Nevada, which activists say has the second highest rate of the crime in the country. Since 2007, the Human Trafficking Hotline says it has received 4,400 calls for help in our state. A third of all trafficking cases here happens in hotels.
There is plenty of work being done to stop trafficking in Nevada, but rescue groups have a growing concern about those who target children online. Jacqueline Schultz introduces us to one Nevada lawmaker who says she has support across the aisle to keep online predators behind bars.
It's well known that youth are lured into trafficking at a very early age, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that there's significant penalties.
One of the many ways sex traffickers find a victim is online, through social media. Nevada State Senator Heidi Severs-Gansert says those who try to lure youth to work on the streets need to be locked up for longer, and those who prey online on the youngest Nevadans should get even more jail time.
They can't be prosecuted for having tried to lure a child or solicit a child, even if they firmly believe and have affirmed that they know that person's underage. This was brought to my attention. It was something I felt we needed to address.
In the past, Senator Severs-Gansert spearheaded a bill to strengthen penalties for online child predators, and says rescue groups for trafficking victims brought to her attention the need to close a legal loophole. Senate Bill 89 would help law enforcement officers working undercover online to trap traffickers. When an officer poses as a minor and a trafficker takes the bait, a perpetrator could face charges and longer jail sentences, from a minimum of 5 to 15 years behind bars, based on the age of the online profile.
And the younger the person is, or they believe that the individual to be, the harsher the penalties. We certainly hope the solicitation of minors is decrease because of this legislation.
The senator also wants to make sure victims have enough time to escape their traffickers and get social services and housing. Nevada has a Victims of Crime Fund. SB 89 extends the window to get help from 24 months to 48 months.
And those funds can be used for housing, for education, for childcare, all sorts of different things which will help them get back on their feet. And in the end, that's what we want.
Jacqueline Schultz, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
SB 89 has a co-sponsor from the Democrats, State Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro of Las Vegas. The legislature starts its next session on Monday.